Hey guys, Stephanie with Steffy Jewels, and in this video I'm going to explain to you what is UV resin and how to use it. Now, UV resin is an already mixed solution that you can use right out the bottle, so there's no mixing involved. If you're very aware of epoxy resin, which is a two-part mixture, meaning there's a resin part and a mixture part, which is called hardener, to make the resin hard or cure, you have to mix two liquids at once. Whereas UV resin, it comes directly out the bottle and you can use it as is. Now, as you can see right here, I have two different sizes here. I have a 60-gram size here, and it can go as big as 100 grams. Now, the brand is right here. It's called Limio, I believe. This name right there, Limio. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And this is the brand that I have started to use and work with. So far, I like it. I haven't had any issues with it thus far. I'm still learning how to use UV resin because I started out in my resin experience using two-part epoxy. But as I got deeper into my jewelry making and noticed that a lot of artists, such as polymer clay artists, were using the UV resin to kind of coat their clay pieces, such as this right here, a lot of them mentioned they use UV resin. So I decided, let me go ahead and try that. But then I decided, well, let me also try UV resin as well. So UV resin is very quick. Now, to actually cure this type of resin, you have to use what is called UV. That's why it's called UV, or ultraviolet sunlight, or some type of rays or light to help cure it. So I have here an actual UV lamp, which is what your typical nail lamp that you put your hands underneath it to kind of cure gel manicurists. You can use one of these, and I prefer this as the method to use when curing because it actually has 3 sets of timers up top here, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and a 99-second count up, which means you can hit this button and it'll count 1 up to 99. And it says low heat mode, which I think that just means it just cures a little bit slower and it don't put a lot of heat out there. I do use this sometimes, but I just kind of stick to the middle one for right now. To cure your resin, you have to follow the directions that are actually on your bottle that you use on how to use it. And for example, this one right here, see if I can get a little closer to you without it blurring on me. It says to about 2 to 4 minutes, if you can see that right there. For UV light, 2 to 4 minutes, or if you don't get exposure to the light. If you're using a sun curing, it says 5 to 20 minutes. Now, as I stated before, you really want to use an actual lamp to cure your UV pieces, as you might not be in an area where you have adequate sunlight, and depending on where you live at, whether it's an apartment setting or a house. Like me, I'm on the 3rd floor, so I don't get enough sunlight directly into my house or my apartment to actually cure my resin, and I don't want to go downstairs 3 flights of stairs just to cure it by sun. So I prefer using an actual lamp. Now, you can also use what is called a UV flashlight. And what this is if you have like quick projects or small projects, you can also cure this the same way. But once again, based on your directions on the bottle that you're using for UV resin, it takes 2 to 4 minutes to cure it. So you can either hold a flashlight like this for about 2 to 4 minutes, or in this case, you can put it underneath an actual lamp. And like I said, with this being 60 seconds, I'll just hit this 2 times up to 4 times to cure it for exactly 4 minutes. So to use UV resin, all you basically need to do is have a type of mold, which is what I have right here. This is just a basic silicone mold. You can use a plastic-based one or even a fondue one, as long as it's silicone or made for resin, or a food-safe mold like they do for candy making. Any mold will preferably work for resin. Now, I just got this basic mold from Amazon, as well as the actual UV resin, and I will put links down below in the description on where you can actually purchase these items. So you just need a basic mold, of course your UV resin, and an actual some type of utensil to kind of stir, or kind of put the resin, like spread the resin around your mold. I use basically a popsicle stick, or I use a toothpick, but you can use other utensils such as this is a silicone stirrer or just a plastic stirrer. You also will need maybe is some type of heat, like a lighter or a mini torch to kind of blow out bubbles. Now, resin does put out some type of gassy bubbles with it, and you see that little bitty micro bubbles in your resin. Now, I haven't seen too many bubbles in the UV resin, but if you have used other resins such as the two-part epoxy, you may know what I'm talking about when you see all the little micro bubbles on top. And it could just be, you know, when the air hits the resin, it forms like a sort of gas. Which brings me to another tip right here that you need. Tip number one, when working with any resin, make sure you have some type of mask and gloves when using them, because it does give out a slight fume. So I will go ahead and put my mask on. And since I'm only going to need one hand right now, since it's in this little bottle, I'm just going to put one glove on. But, you know, I'll go ahead and put two on. But you don't really touch this resin, since you're just basically pouring it directly into the mold. But safety is always precaution, because you don't want this on your skin, because it is very sticky. And if it does get on your skin, I always keep a pack of baby wipes on hand, because it actually helps clean the resin up a little bit. So let me go ahead and loosen this stuff around. And actually, let me plug in, oops, my actual UV lamp. So this one is actually a plug-in one, so you have to have an AC adapter. But I do see other ones out there that you can use a USB port that plugs into your computer. So let me go ahead and get that started. So I'm gonna take my UV resin, and I'm just gonna pick, I think for right now, I'm just gonna pick this mold right here. So I'm gonna unscrew it and just kind of pour it in here. Now make sure that the mold that you're using is fairly clean, and you want to make sure you actually fill it up to the top, because you kind of want that bezel look on your mold. Now I also like to keep a paper towel next to me too, just to kind of clean up any extra mess. So I do wipe my nozzle off. The best thing about UV resin is it won't stick to the nozzle, and you do have a lot of working time. And what working time means is you can actually take your time if you want to add pieces to it, or like, so for example, you can add pigments of color. This is actually an epoxy oil-based ink color that you can actually add in here, which I'll go ahead and do that at the same time so you can kind of see. So there goes my clear piece. I'm just going to do that without any actual colors. This right here, I'm going to go ahead and add some of this pigment in here. Now the best thing about UV resin is you can pretty much add almost anything you want in there. I do suggest kind of playing around with it, because when you put certain items in there, such as if you want to try to do dry flowers or any type of flowers, the flowers need to be dried, meaning there's no moisture in it, because you don't want to have water on any item that you're going to actually end up putting in your resin. And I think I need to fill that up a little bit more to the top, because I don't think it's up. There we go. There. So, but yeah, you kind of want to make sure that you can, you know, you experiment and play around with it. Now, I haven't tried the flowers yet, and I'm not sure you can see that, but there's a little bubble right here that I'm going to try to pop with my toothpick. But you can use, like I said, some type of flame to actually blow on top of it. Make sure you just blow across of it, but do not stick the actual flame in the actual resin. I don't believe it's flammable, but you just don't want to make sure, you know, you don't burn your molds or anything like that. If you don't want to use a flame, you can also use just a basic straw to kind of blow any bubbles out. Just like that. Basically what you need is some type of heat to kind of pop those bubbles. Now, with epoxy, and if you want to see how epoxy resin works, I'll leave a card up above right here so you can click on that to see the difference between the UV and epoxy. Epoxy will have the same type of liquid right here that have bubbles that will actually raise up, but you want to make sure that you kind of pop those pretty quickly, and you can actually let epoxy resin or two-part resin kind of sit for a little bit to give time for the bubbles to kind of rise to the top, or it makes it easier for you to pop it, or take something like this or this to kind of like get the bubbles out of the system. UV resin, plenty of working time, which means it's not going to start thickening up. So for this one right here, I'm going to add a couple of drops in one of them. And make sure when you're actually getting any type of pigment that you can actually put this in resin. Not all liquid or any type of coloring will go into resin. Like this one right here, I tried this with epoxy and it did not dry. So I decided, let me see if this works for UV, and it does. So I'm just going to put a couple of drops in this one. And get my top here. And then with my toothpick, I'm just going to kind of swirl the color around. Now, I suggest doing a drop at a time just to see how it will react to the resin you're using, because certain pigments might be a little bit too heavy and it might start dropping to the bottom of the mold and it might not cure correctly or fully, because you want it to have a nice hard cure. When you're curing your resin, you don't want to have it still sticky. Now, another tip that I like to mention is, even though your bottle might tell you 2 to 4 minutes, you might have to play around with that time, because I found out doing the basic 2 to 4 minutes, my pieces still turned out sticky. So I actually did it longer than 2 minutes. So for the sake of time, I'm going to probably do it just for 5 minutes, so that way you can kind of see what's going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my UV light here. And the good thing about this one is that depending on how high your pieces are, if you put a piece underneath here, it'll start counting up to 99 seconds. But since this is pretty flat, I'll have to hit the button. So I'm going to hit this button here. And as you can see, the counter is going to start counting down from 60 down to 1. So I'm going to do this about 5 minutes to give it time to cure. And then I'll come right back to you and show you what's next. So it's been about 5 minutes. I think I did an extra 2 more minutes just to make sure it cured. And the reason why I did an extra 2 minutes, because these pieces I actually tested earlier before I decided to film, and it was still kind of sticky to touch. The clear one as well as the color one. Another thing I want to show you too, that because I have no shame in showing my mistakes, that this was the first piece I was trying to cure, and while I was in the middle of the process, the actual mold tipped on me, and I didn't realize that until I came back to it and saw that, yeah, it was actually on the ground. So I had to, of course, redo another one for the film. But that's the thing about resin. You're going to have some mistakes here, just like I have on this one. And that's okay, because you can just try again, because it's fun to play with stuff that you never used before. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And one thing I like to mention is that after the curing process, these will be a little, have a little heat to it, so it'll be a little hot to touch. But so you can just let it cool off for about maybe a minute or so. And then we're just going to unmold it. So there's my clear piece. And then that's the one I did with the actual ink right here. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that with this ink right here, some inks you have to actually put directly into resin, whereas others, such as this one, which I'll show here in a second, you can just pour straight out the bottle. This is also a UV resin, but it has the actual color in it. So this one is UV resin blue. So after I demold these, I'm going to actually show you how this one looks with just the actual resin. So this one is the clear. This one you have to add into your UV resin. Whereas this one right here, you can pour directly out of the bottle because it's still a UV resin. It just also has the color already mixed in it. So depending on how you want to actually work with your project, you can always do it 2 like this, or you can get all in one. So it's up to you. And since I got this as a gift from my mother, I was going to use them because I wanted to try how it worked. And I have tested this first without putting this inside resin. It does not work. It don't work in epoxy, because if I stuck it in the 2-part epoxy, the actual piece does not cure, because this is an oil base, and it just kind of left out oil residues, kind of like oil and water. It don't mix, but kind of separated my 2 resin. It separated the resin from the actual oil. And then when I tried to do it by itself again, it never cured, whether I did it with a light or whether I did it with a 24-hour cure. So let's go ahead and pop these bad boys out. So there goes my clear one. And there goes my color one. So on top, it's not sticky. I do feel a little bit of stickiness with it. And on the back of it, and that's the back of it, or the actual mold, as you can kind of see, it looks a little wet. And if I touch it a little bit, it is slightly sticky. It doesn't touch, I don't feel the stickiness on my hand, but touching it, I do. So in that case, that's why I like to also have the actual flashlight, because I can actually just sit here and kind of like cure it by hand here, or you can stick it back underneath the actual machine for another minute or 2. One thing that I know that some of the videos will show, if you look on YouTube for these videos, they actually make sure that your actual mold is as clear as it can be. And as you can see, this is fairly transparent, pretty clear. And most molds, here's another one I have right here, they're about this transparency one. So unless you have like a very clear, like almost glass-like, kind of like the plastic ones out there, it's gonna have some type of stickiness behind it. But all I just say is, if it is a little sticky, just put it back underneath your lamp here for a few more seconds until it's no longer sticky. So let me move this out the way. Oh, and one thing I want to say too is this sheet right here, this is a Teflon sheet. When working with any type of liquid, whether it's paint, UV resin, or anything, if you don't want to mess up your actual work surface right here, get you some of these Teflon sheets, because nothing sticks to Teflon sheet. I'm not sure you can see some of these little pieces here. These like dry up pieces of resin that's filled. It just peel right off. But do not throw these away. If you have anything that actually falls in here, paint or anything, keep these and stash them somewhere, because you might can use it for a project or just experiment with some stuff. So now let me demonstrate how to use just a basic UV resin that already has the ink mixed in it. So it's the same thing, and I think this is a brand new bottle. So let me take off the top real quick, or take out the peel. And once again, it works just the same as this right here. You just pour directly into it. You don't have to worry about it, setting too fast. You have a good work time with this. I'm just going to use this one right here. So I'm just going to pour that in there. And so I'm going to let it pour to the top. Make sure it fills the top of the mold here. Still going to get my paper towel or some type of wipe to wipe the top of it off, just to kind of keep it clean and no stickiness on there. And yeah, once again, I should have had my gloves on. So if you're going to work any type of resin, make sure you have your gloves on and have a mask on. Oh, and also important, when working with resin, make sure you have a well-ventilated area as well. I'm in an apartment, so I do have a big space where the air does kind of flow here, and I also got a ceiling fan above me, as well as one blowing. So it is fairly well ventilated where I don't actually smell it. But just like a clear one, just gonna go around here, see if there's any bubbles. And one thing I noticed with the color ones is that you don't see too many bubbles too often in the actual resin if it has color in it, like you do with the clear. Sorry, there's a piece of hair stuck on that. So I'm just gonna make sure here. And once again, I'm gonna go ahead and put this underneath here for about another 5 minutes. I'll make sure that this thing does not tip over on it again. I just lost my cord. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let this one cure for about another, I'm gonna say about 6 minutes, since it is color, and I'll come back and let you see what that one looks like. Okay, so it's been about 6 minutes. I did the same thing as I did with the first two pieces. I let it go past the 2 to 4 minutes that the bottle indicated, because I have color. So let's see where we're at right now. Now, as you can see, the difference right now, just the color that this UV resin with the ink looks a whole lot different than this one. So always kind of experiment first with like maybe a small one, and you could even like put like a little small drop in one of these molds, or like say, even if you have one of these Teflon sheets, you could actually pour the resin on your Teflon sheet, because like I said, it will not stick to you. Can actually peel it off, but just kind of have like a testing area just to kind of see how it look with just ink. But since I got this as a gift, I didn't want to waste this, so I figured I'm gonna try to use it as much as I can. Since it is made for, based on the actual description on Amazon, it is made to be used with resin, but I don't think the quality of it is not one that I would have got at first. And like I said, my mother picked this out for me, not knowing about resin either. She just saw that, oh, it's used for resin, let's grab it. But like I said, you live and learn, and like I said, when you start getting stuff offline, which you can get resin either from Amazon, and like I said, I am an associate member that gets a small commission off items that you purchase through Amazon, so I humbly, graciously will love for you to check those links down below, or you can check out other websites such as doranbeads.com or AliExpress. AliExpress also do have a lot of great materials out there. The only catch is you have to wait a couple of months because it is overseas, and due to the pandemic, a lot of the stuff is being delayed in shipment. So I'm go to Amazon first. Not too many craft store sales UV resin. I think Hobby Lobby or Michael's might sell one as ice resin, but I think that's more of an epoxy. I have not seen any UV resin out there. I think most of these are actually online, but let's go ahead and unmold this one. So you can see the color, it looks so gorgeous. And I'm touching right now, it's not sticky, but like I said, sometimes the back of it will be sticky, and you can actually probably turn this over, put your actual lamp over it, and see if that works. I haven't tried that yet, but maybe I will to see if that works. So that's the front of the piece right there. And then here's the back. And you can kind of see it looks a little sticky. And if I touch it here, yeah, it sticks to me. But it's not sticky on my hand, so it's just a slight stickiness. And one thing about that stickiness, if you don't like that, you can actually pour a small drop of clear resin on it. Take your actual tool and just kind of spread it a little bit to get rid of that stickiness to kind of get a more cleaner look. But there you have it. That is exactly how you will use UV resin, either by clear, using one of the actual inks out there or pigments out there, or the actual UV resin color that's out there. So if you found this video very helpful, please give me a thumbs up, a like or dislike. You know, all reaction is great reaction in my books. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You hit that bell so that way the next time I have new videos out there, you are definitely alerted on those new videos. Once again, this is Stephanie with Steffy Jewels, and as always, you'll never know what treasure you find here at Steffy Jewels. Hope to see you soon. Bye.